Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name is Ben Jackson, and I'm finally back from my honeymoon to finally jump back into the Belgian football craziness. I know it's been absolutely mental in terms of the league since I left, so it's been nice to catch up on all the craziness that's been going on. Joris and Scott, you've been here throughout. It's good to see you guys again. How are you doing this evening?
I'm great, and it's lovely to have you back. Did Mr. and Mrs. Jackson have a good time?
Oh, yeah. The Seychelles, if you're ever thinking of going, 100% recommend. What a place.
And well, actually not that much has changed. Antwerp keep winning, so well, you're back on track already here.
Absolutely. I'm sure they're happy to hear that. Let's quickly go through those scores from the weekend then, shall we? So as Joris said, Antwerp keep winning. They beat Selang at home 2-1 on Friday night. Mechelen hosted Leuven on Saturday afternoon. That one finished 0-0. There was a red card in that to at least give it a bit of entertainment and a couple of VAR decisions. Zorteweg, they were beaten at home by Sint Truiden and their former player Gianni Bruno starred in that one. Cercle Brugges threw away a 2-0 lead over Oostende to draw that one 2-2, which marked the end of Dominic Thalhammer's reign as manager of Cercle, and we'll definitely talk about that. Charleroi, they lost 3-2 at home to Westerlo. Genk left it late on Sunday to beat Ghent 1-0. Eupen left it late to lose to Union. They lost 2-1. Standard put in a performance of the weekend, arguably. They beat Club Brugges at home 3-0. And then Anderlecht, they absolutely battered Kortrijk 4-1. So let's start then with the league leaders, keeping that perfect record going. And they were out of the blocks very quickly against Selang. Calvin Stengs with a great corner in. Toby Alderweireld with another goal for the season to make it 1-0. They had a couple more chances after that. A couple of deflections, forcing the ball wide, kind of keeping Selang in it, before Vincent Janssen got a deflection himself to score another goal this season. And that made it 2-0. And at that point, you're thinking, Antwerp should probably go and stick 3 or 4 past Selang here, who, to be fair to them, they battled hard and they tried, but it didn't look like they had much to offer. However, their first kind of shot on target actually did manage to bring them a goal. A ball into the box. Marius didn't really control it well, but it kind of popped out to Antoine Bernier, whose first time shot kind of sent Boutte the wrong way. Sent him to his left, but he stuck it into his right. However, Selang couldn't really finally get back into the game. It finished 2-1 to Antwerp. Kellenkamp hit the bar and Janssen had another chance later on. But Scott and Joris, another win, I guess, for Antwerp. They'll probably have wanted to score more against Selang, but they'll be happy to just keep on winning, I guess, at this stage.
Yeah, I think. There's not a great deal really to say about this game. I think it was a routine win for Antwerp. I think most people were expecting that. 9 wins on the bounce now, but history for them, and a lesson in why you probably shouldn't leave Toby Alderweireld unmarked in your own 6-yard box. Really good example of that as well for everybody in this game. Routine. And actually, the interesting thing for Antwerp is their and here comes our favourite word, everybody, efficiency. Me and Joris were joking about how often we used this word last week. The efficiency data from an Antwerp point of view is looking really, really good at the moment, and they just need to keep doing what they're doing. And they have a really favourable run of fixtures coming up as well, actually. They're away to Kortrijk next, home to Sint Truiden, then they're away to Standard, they go to Slessen, home to Oostende, and then they're at home to Genk. So they've got a pretty decent run of fixtures coming up as well. So things are kind of looking quite good for them. And I think a lot of people now are certainly starting to use the word proper title challenge more than they had done before, I think.
Arguably, they had this easier run of fixtures they just had, and the difficult ones are coming up. Also, I thought about that during your while you were naming the teams here as well. But easy win from the outside viewpoint. Very underwhelming after taking the 2-goal lead though, and after Zayed got back into the game. Very underwhelming, but they won't care because of course they won. Janssen, with a weird goal, but to take the lead in the top scorers list, I'm sure neither of us expected that like around 3 weeks ago still, I guess. and he was not off the market. From Serea's point of view, they scored another goal away from home, which is a nice thing for them, because the home fans are still waiting to see their first goal at home, which is an interesting stat after already 9 games now. Yeah, and both teams actually were quite efficient. 3 shots on targets from Antwerp, on 2 goals, and Serre only had 2 shots on targets. I will be throwing a lot of these stats going on. It looks like not many teams shot a lot on target this weekend. Spoiler alert. But routine win, I guess. It's not that Serre really were pushing really hard, but Antwerp's level was not great after the blitz start, I guess you could say. Where they secured their lead very early on and managed to hold on.
Yeah, and they'll definitely be happy about that. The Janssen goal kind of reminded me, I don't know if you guys might not remember, but that Harry Kane goal against Panama in the Russian World Cup, where it just deflected off someone just shot and deflected off him and went in. And I don't know, probably anger some people when I say this, but it was one of the kind of weirdest Golden Boot winning World Cups ever. And I feel like that's kind of the equivalent of Janssen being top scorer at the moment with a goal like that. It's just kind of like, okay, it's just a bit of pure luck. But then as well, it's kind of like, is it striker's instincts? Like right place at the right time to get the deflection maybe? Who knows? But for Serang, I guess not getting absolutely battered again, it's a good sign, isn't it, that they can stick out in these kind of big games. Although, Antwerp didn't play as well as they possibly could have. But to not get hammered, I think, is just... they are showing fight, and I think that's kind of such an important thing for them at the moment. Joris mentioned shots on target, and we're going to move to Mechelen against Leuven, where there are only 3 apiece, I think, in this one. Mechelen thought they'd taken the lead, and Goy with a nice little finish, but it was offside in the build-up to that one, so it was ruled out. Leuven then thought they'd taken the lead. Altamari with another really nice finish, but they'd been offside in the build-up to that one as well, so they were both cancelled out. Alessio de Cruz decided that this game's a bit dull, let's need to liven it up a bit. So he absolutely hacked down Matthew Mertens and got himself sent off in the 44th minute. Was a little bit stupid. It just was a completely unnecessary tackle. It looked like it was just born out of frustration, but it was just in the middle of the pitch, just never going to get the ball, just swung him down. And it was just kind of... he was asking for a red card. Danny Boyson got himself sent off as well near the end, so... That's kind of the highlights from this one. For Leuven, I guess they'll be a little bit frustrated, Scott and Joris, that they weren't able to kind of capitalise against 10 men. For Mechelen, it's just kind of adding to a more frustrating season, I guess.
Yeah, this was actually quite a good game. I quite enjoyed watching this one. Really open stretch game. Both sides really going for it. It's just a shame we didn't get any actual goals in the end. I think Mechelen's red card was a little bit harsh. I saw that a few times. I can see why the ref, went for a red, but it was a little bit harsh in Mechelen, I thought. Leuven on the whole, I think the better side. Actually, they looked more like winning it in the end. And Mechelen, as I've been saying for a number of weeks now, just kind of yet to settle, I think. Still waiting for some players to come back. That's just not quite clicking for them at the moment. And they've definitely lost a lot of that kind of free-flowing sort of offensive potency that they've had for some time. Things not quite going right for Julien Ngoy at the moment. He's not really clicking, as the main striker. So they just need to kind of keep working hard. I mean, there's enough quality there for them to be all right. This is a game that ordinarily, under most circumstances, they would have won, but I felt Leuven were definitely the better side, and certainly looked. The body language was noticeably more confident as well, so you could tell this was the side who feel a little bit better about themselves. I think on the whole, Mechelen just need to kind of keep working hard. I mean, for all of their offensive output in this game, they actually only had 2 shots on target, which is nothing like what they would usually have as well, and that's been the case for a number of weeks now. So they're just not they're not producing in an output sense, and they're kind of having to kind of play themselves into games. Actually, the intensity isn't there, but it's early days for Danny Boyce, and I think he's trying to work with what he's got at the moment, and just kind of create a new dynamic there, his own one, which is fair enough, I think, and we'll see what happens in the coming weeks for them.
Yeah, and at least they were able to stop their run of penalties conceded. They had 4 games in a row where they conceded a penalty before this one. This time, well, it was a red card instead of a penalty. Well, a red card for both the player and also for Danny Boyce himself. So the team changed a bit. They might still not be too happy with referees, but well, this that run stopped at least. And yeah, you would think it is an unlikely scoreline for Mechelen, but this was the 4th 0-0 of the season. I had forgotten one in the previous episodes, by the way, so that I had missed one. But in 2 of the 4 of these 0-0s, Mechelen is one of the teams getting the clean sheet. So it is more likely than you would think, and maybe that's also what Bas more or less wants. It's what we always said, that he has a bit of more of a defensive approach. But yeah, it also indeed means a less output offensively more in most of the games. They're having, like, in one game they have it, in some other game they don't. So last week they scored 4, they scored even 5 against Westerlo. So they need to balance that out over games, definitely. And on Leuven, yeah. Also, worth mentioning for Mechelen, sorry, first, is the debut for the 16-year-old Sule or Swell. I actually don't know which pronunciation is correct, but another young striker that made his debut for Mechelen this season. And got a yellow card already, but not as spectacular the debut this time around. Leuven, on the other hand, yeah, they did even worse with the shots on target. They only had 1, so it was not 3 apiece, but or 3 in total for both teams together. And for Leuven, on the other hand, is also their first clean sheet since they started the season with 2 clean sheets. It's the first time since game day 3 then that they got another clean sheet. So they will be happy about that aspect, but they probably also feel like they should have gotten more out of this game, given they were playing so long with a man more on the pitch.
Yeah, I think that's probably what will be a little bit of frustration for them. But I agree. But yeah, I think for both teams having clean sheets, especially Mechelen, it's just we're not used to seeing them having clean sheets and having 0-0s. It's just like quite an alien concept. So, so yeah, I guess at least they can kind of fall back on that, but they'd hope to, like you said, Joris, kind of balance it all out. One side that would probably loved a clean sheet was Zulte Waregem. They hosted Sint Truiden, and as I said before, it was a Gianni Bruno kind of come back to haunt them in this one, and he made his mark on the game very early on. First minute, a corner comes in, he just easy run to the front post, flicks it in through Sammy Bossett's legs. That makes it 1-0. Danny Ramirez then gets himself sent off in the 18th minute with a pretty bad tackle on Frank Boyer. Boyer obviously used to play for Zulte Waregem last season. He was quite involved in this game, to be fair to him. But yeah, that means Zulte down to 10 men and a goal down. Speaking of shots on target, they only managed 2, whereas Sint Truiden this game had 18 shots overall, 8 of which were on target. They made it 2-0 just into the second half. Really nice play on the left-hand side from Koita, who came on for Janssen, I believe. He's had to kind of settle for a place on the bench with Janssen coming and playing much more often. So good to see Koita back in doing some bits there. Really nice kind of run down the side, tricky wing inside play, crossed it in, and I don't know, this felt like the most Shinji Okazaki sort of goal, just sticking his head somewhere. He probably didn't need to stick it. He could have just kneed it, done anything with it. But being Shinji Okazaki, he just has to put his body on the line for a goal, almost heads it over. But I don't know about you guys, he has the most infectious smile. He's just when he scores, he just looks so happy and it's just so infectious. I love him. Absolute big fan of Shinji Okazaki. It's great to see him get on the score sheet in this one. Frank Boyle, as I mentioned earlier, then just went on an absolute tear for some reason down the wing. Don't know what he was doing. But it was kind of like reminiscent of that game he had against Kortrijk, where he just seemed to try and score, but this time just ran into the box, sidestepped round Boya, who just kind of took him out. No real argument there. Penalty. Gianni Bruno stepped up. Absolutely no doubt there. Made it 3-0. Bruno could have had a hat-trick in this one. Hashioka did some really nice play on the right-hand side. Found Bruno in acres of space. He just like fluffed it straight into the hands of Sammy Bossert. Good win for Sint Truiden. Bruno starting to motor a little bit. They're looking cohesive and they're scoring goals going forward. And with them, you know that going forward, if they can score 3 goals, it's very unlikely they're going to lose a game, given how defensively solid they are.
Yeah, this was actually quite an interesting game, and I suppose fair play to St Truiden. Do you know what I mean? Convincing winners. But here's the thing about Zulte. How worried are we about them now? We've been talking about this for a while. A, worried, B, very worried, C, absolutely bloody terrified, because, again, it's the offensive thing. I don't see where anything positive is happening up the top end for them at the moment. I thought it was very interesting that Mbaile made some of the starting lineup changes that he made this weekend for this game as well, obviously hoping that mixing it up a little bit might, just be a kind of catalyst for some change, and it certainly didn't work out that way. So it'll be interesting to see what he does come match day 10 with his starting lineup. But there are some really, really worrying signs now. I mean, I think of all the players that have come in over the summer, I think probably Nicholas Rollins, for me, is the only one that's kind of showing any signs of a massively positive contribution in any way at all. He's not looking bad at all. Other than that, nobody is really offering very much at all at the moment. And I'd love to know what Mbaile was actually thinking. What is it that goes through your head when you're being kept awake at night trying to figure out a solution to just being able to kind of score some goals, because obviously they've conceded the joint most at the moment. They've slipped to bottom. And this is a side low on confidence, and it's strange because the early signs this season were certainly more positive. It looked like they were starting to kind of lay down a new template. That game against Bruges a number of weeks ago, which they didn't manage to get anything out of, but actually played really, really well. To me, still was kind of the template for how maybe they should be playing, but. ABC, or take your pick, but it's worrying times at Zulte, and I think they're in for a long, hard season, and I know lots of other people feel that way now as well.
Yeah, that's the 30 goals of last season are still at the club and in the striking force, and neither of them started this weekend. I'm also still wondering what happened with Gano, and is it Leia being very stubborn and so on, and then in that case he's basically, I fear, sentencing himself by doing that even more. And stars of Zultuarium, both halves was terrible, conceding in the first minutes, and then also in the second half they started really poorly. Set pieces again, like last week against Gent, killing them as well. So also defensively, that, like I mentioned last week, that's something you can really train on, and it doesn't seem to be happening, or not successfully at least. And like Scott mentioned, they're now officially dropped. They have now officially dropped to the last place. So very, very worrying signs. They haven't won in a long, long while, and that's also a run that's going on since last season already. So it looks really, really dire, and it will be really interesting to see how this can go. I think the international break is coming right in time for them. Maybe they can go for a big reset in a way, and and get their stuff, get some things sorted out at least, work on some things, and get back stronger. Sint Truiden, on the other hand, also not going to tell much new, back to clean sheets as well, and Yeah, Bruno scoring twice against his former employer. A routine win for them, actually, even. Yeah, and a deserved one as well. Still looking good.
Yeah, routine win for sure for them in that one. And yeah, I'm definitely worried about Zultavara again. I thought there were kind of some signs at the start of the season. Obviously, the draw against Club Brugges, they played reasonably well against Antwerp, but it's just as it's been getting, as they haven't been winning, it's just been getting more like worse and worse, I guess we could say. And not picking Vossen, like I understand you want to change things up, but he's the only real goal scorer in that side. Even if he's like slightly injured, I'd play him. And then yeah, with Gano, it's just all a bit weird and confusing. So maybe the international break will give them a chance to sort some stuff out, and they'll come back, and hopefully for their sake and the fans' sake, they'll actually put in some better performances. But yeah, I enjoyed what I saw from St Truiden. Obviously, I am a Gianni Bruno fan, so it's nice to see him scoring as well. And he didn't celebrate against his former club, which I don't know if they appreciate it, because at that point he's already kind of put the nail in the coffin with the goals. So by that point, it doesn't really matter, does it? Talking about the nail in the coffin, let's go to Cercle Bruges against Eastend. Evidently turned out to be a must-win for Thalhammer and Cercle Bruges, although, to be fair, Yves van der Haag won a game and then was sacked by Cercle Bruges. So there's more to it, I think, than just that. They obviously look deeper into things. I know that is kind of the case for this one, but it started reasonably well for Cercle. They won a penalty. However, Kevin Denke then missed said penalty, much to the frustration of the fans. However, he did redeem himself in the 38th minute, tapping in from a set piece that Oostend just defended horribly and didn't do anything with. Ueda then made it 2-0 just before half time. Just a really nice finish from him, running onto a really nice through ball. Kind of just didn't put much power on the finish, just kind of slotted it in past Hubert to make it 2-0. At that point, you're thinking, right, okay, Cercle, you just got to hold on to this one. Like, you're comfortable in this one. You're up 2-0 at halftime at home. However, Yves van der Haag ran the changes, started bringing on some more attacking players, just kind of chucked this kitchen sink, I guess you could say, at his former employers, Cercle Bruges. Thierry Ambrose got them back in the game in the 76th minute. He was absolutely delighted with that. And then they got a penalty in the 82nd. It looked a little bit soft. I don't know what you guys think. I think it is a penalty, but I don't know, it just felt a little bit soft for me. Obviously, Medieki had already saved a penalty in this game, I believe. But then, yeah, Thierry Ambrose stepped up with this one in the 82nd minute, and he made it 2 goals apiece. And basically, I think it was a couple of day after Cercle Bruges announced that Thalhammer had been relieved of his duties at the club. I guess it's kind of not just from the start to this season. Joris, you've been mentioning it before about how the kind of decline in Cercle's performances started at the back end kind of last season. But I guess we all kind of went into this season being like, okay, but they've had the summer now, they're sort of out and they'll kind of get back to what it was before. But it just hasn't really worked out to start the season, has it? And it looks like they just decided that we're going to make the change now. We've got the international break to kind of like, we want to save the season before we go back into another relegation fight, which is something they really, really don't want to do.
Yeah, definitely. And giving away the 2-0 lead in the final 15 minutes, that can't help. That makes it 1 win in the last 10 games, for including last season as well, which is only 1 game of last season. But even before that, the back end of last season, they grabbed a few wins here and there, but it was not spectacular anymore. The spectacular amount of points they grabbed there. I mean, Denke getting his first goal after season after missing a penalty. It was actually the set piece, a corner after that missed penalty, the save from Hubert, that Hubert, handed him an even easier option to score a goal, and he managed to put that one away. Definitely. It's also the first time of the season, though, that Cercle Brugge have actually scored more than once in one game. So that makes it even harsher on them, that they gave away that lead still. On Ostende's side, it was also a bit of a game of with a weird team of strikers getting their first goal of the season from a penalty, but not from a penalty, because it was also indeed a saved penalty. But then the rebound fell to an Ostende player who passed it back to Ambrose, who could put it away, and he did manage to score his second penalty as well. A lot of penalties in this game, that all factors that don't really help for Cercle Brugge in this case in the end, even though they got the first penalty, of course. Yeah, and well, on Thalhammer, I know Scott has more intel on that, so I'll actually hand over the microphone to him.
What a segue that was. I was lucky enough to kind of catch up with Cercle's sporting director, Carlos Avina, last night. I spoke to him for a little while just to talk about Dominic Thalhammer's departure from the club and to get a little bit more insight into, why that decision was made and kind of the reasoning behind that. And I think, when we look at the broader context of this, I think there was an acceptance that Dominic Thalhammer was on a sugary peg. I think, as I said last week, and as we would say in Scotland, just purely because of the run that they've been on since the start of the season. Only won one of the 9 so far. But as we've touched upon already, there's been a kind of downward trend in terms of their numbers really since the end of last season. Cercle are a club who do an in-depth match analysis after every 5 games. The coaching staff and the sporting staff sit down and look at all of the data, the good, the bad, to kind of pinpoint issues, look at individual player data. We're talking about a minute level of analysis here, which is actually kind of very important, which happens every 5 games. And this downward trend started in those last sort of 6 or 7 games of last season, when not only were they picking up less points, but they were creating fewer opportunities. They were conceding more goals, so it wasn't really going in the right direction right at the end of last season. This season didn't start any better. As I was saying, only 1 win in 9, and I think there was a feeling that that obviously isn't good enough for this group of players. I think conceding twice so late in the game against Oostende, doubly frustrating, particularly when you need a result to go against you. And I think that was probably the thing that ultimately led to the decision being made, enough being enough. I know from speaking to Carlos that, Cercle are, they're actually a very ambitious club. They have long-term plans, for the club's development, as they should. And I think there was a feeling that, there was more of a need for a kind of tactical flexibility in there. We know the way that Cercle like to play now. They have a template of, a high-tempo gegenpressing game, essentially. To basically describe how they play, and that is not going to change at all. I think what's been missing is quicker responses tactically to what's happening in front of them, I think, because the thing is, they've been playing that way for a while now, and it was working very well for them for a long time. And obviously what happens, as with other sides, is teams find you out. They get to understand how you play, what you're good at, what you're not good at. Therefore, they can tactically adjust to that template. And I think what that means is coaches obviously have to tweak things subtly in response to who you're playing. And I think there's a feeling, looking at all of the data from Carlos, that Dominic wasn't responding necessarily quickly enough to things that were going on in front of them, I think, which obviously is difficult. And a change had to be made. And we must remember as well, this is a season like no other. Obviously 3 sides go down, so there is added pressure, particularly on this season. And obviously we have an unnatural break for a World Cup, which is going to cause a lot of disruption in various ways for clubs. So I think there was a general feeling that because things haven't started well, that if they make the change now, then they still have 2/3 of a season ultimately to reach their objectives. And I know from speaking to Carlos last night, their objectives haven't changed. Whereas if they'd left it another 4 or 5 weeks, then you're into the sort of territory where perhaps the best you can hope for is survival. And, Cercle are more ambitious than that. They don't just want to survive, they want to push hard for a playoff 2 place, which is still positive. So it's a change that's been made for the right reasons, I think. Like all changes, it's a gamble, but, Carlos has made decisions like this before and proven to be right. So we'll see if that's the case again. But I don't think anyone can really criticise Cercle for making this decision as perhaps as early as they have, because of the kind of extraordinary nature of some of this season.
Yeah, I mean, well, if it pays off, he'll obviously take all the raptures again like they did last season when he obviously made that decision. There was lots of criticism, but it did work out. I think, just looking at the squad, I just don't think they should be in a relegation battle. I think there are worse teams down there than them, and they have got the quality in it. It's just, have the players let him down? I don't know, like you could say that maybe, but when it comes down to sort of like tactical tweaks and stuff like that, that I guess does kind of fall down to the manager, and if that's the reason, then I guess you can't really argue with that if that's what they've seen. So yeah, a brave move, I guess you could say, but also one you're going to do it early.
I was going to say it's a really interesting one, this, because obviously they've decided to keep things in-house and have a degree of continuity. Miron Muslic, who was already there as part of Dominic Thalhammer's staff, he's now going to be the new permanent T1. Jimmy DeWolf's staying there, who was the T2. He'll be Miron's T2. So the playing style isn't going to change. The players are comfortable with the kind of coaching staff. They know each other. So it is really about that increased flexibility and that ability to be more responsive to tactical changes that really this kind of all comes back to. The players don't have to worry about a new face coming in and perhaps, chucking everything out and starting again as a way of a reset. It's really about, just being more responsive and flexible, and we'll see if the data is right about that. Miron actually, his main role in the coaching staff was as a tactical advisor to Dominic Thalhammer and the rest of the coaching staff. So Miron's thing is very much that tactical insight. So he's the one who is very much a specialist in that and the most responsive to that. So I think that's part of the thinking behind this. He's young and he's ambitious, and Carlos was telling me that he thinks he's ready and deserves that opportunity. So we'll see how he gets on, and we wish him well.
Yeah, definitely good luck to him on that one. And we'll kind of be keeping a closer eye, I guess, on how tactically flexible he is now that we know that's the reason. So, yeah, no pressure there, Milan. But I'm sure that, they wouldn't have given him the job if they didn't think he was up for it. He'll be hoping that over the international break he can just work on a couple of things with the players that haven't gone away, although quite a few have gone away. Obviously, the kind of the bonus, I guess, of the kind of plethora of young talent that they've got is lots of them are going away to the under-23 squads. So they'll just have to work with kind of the players that are left around. Let's move on to Charleroi, which was the Saturday evening game. Frustrating game for the home side, but I have to say it looked like I've only been able to see the highlights from this one because I was travelling back at the time, but Maxime de Kuiper seemed to have a really, really good game and kind of was influential, especially in the first half, in giving Westerlo the lead. It was him who set up the first goal, dancing inside before finding Brian Reynolds, who opened his account for Westerlo in the 3rd minute to give them a 1-0 head start. Counter-attack for the second one. Lara Foster did brilliantly to hold off a couple of Charleroi players before finding a rampaging, I guess you could say, Maxime de Kuiper from left back, who just kind of blitzed his way down the pitch to fire it past Herve Coffey, and that made it 2-0. And I can safely say the Charleroi fans were not impressed. They were pretty angry about what was going on. However, Isaac and Benza did get them back into the game. Kenan Cooper with a nice cross in, absolute terrible defending from Segers, and Tagier just didn't really mark anyone, and Benza just drifted in to make it 2-1 at that point. Charleroi then pushing to get an equaliser, and it took them until the 88th minute. Yusuf Badji, he got the goal in this one. Really nice header from a Zorgan cross into the top corner. And delight on the Charleroi fans and players' faces. However, literally a minute later, they got caught cold on the counter-attack. Fixels with a nice break. He found, I believe it was Nenad Douglas who'd come on. He crossed it in, and there was Kian Vassen to make it 3-2, literally a minute after Charleroi had equalised. And that's how it ended, much to the delight of the Westerlo players and the staff. Impressive win, I guess you could say, for them on the road away at Charleroi. Frustrating for Charleroi to lose it so late after getting back into it, but that's now 2 wins on the bounce for Westerlo, and yeah, they'll be pretty chuffed with what they achieved in this one.
Yep, lo and behold, an away win for Westerlo after this yo-yoing of performing well at home but not well away. They'll be really pleased with that result, I think. I was impressed with Nasser Chadley for the second week in a row. I said last week I thought if he can play anything like he did in his debut, then he was going to be a really good pickup for them. And I thought he was good again. Westerlo have been doing quite a lot of things right, I think. You know, they've been performing kind of quite well in their away fixtures and arguably not really getting perhaps what they deserved out of games, so they'll be particularly pleased to have got this win. Maybe the way they did as well in dramatic fashion, I think, you know, might be a catalyst for them. You know what I mean? That whole thing about, you know, just keep going to the end of a game. We know in Belgium that there can be quite a lot of stoppage time in games, which is another reason that, you know, you should really be playing for 95, 97 minutes in a game. As Ronnie Dyla said in his team talk to his standard players this weekend, you go for 95, not for 90. You know, Starrock will be really pleased with that, I think. And, you know, frustrating one for Charleroi, who continue to offer much positivity, I think. But yeah, they'll be feeling down about that one, I think.
Yes, definitely. It's also their second 3-2 loss in a row, in conceding the latest goal in those games as well. Yeah, and they had a lot of the possession of the ball as well, so they probably would have wanted to create more. Interesting thing to see for both teams. It was a 5-goal game, and for each of the 5 players scoring, it was the first goal of the season. Doesn't signify much, but I found it worth mentioning. And that Charleroi indeed slipping down a bit because of these two losses, and they conceding a bit too much. Both teams, again, also not with a lot of shots on target. Westerlo even scores 3 times with their 3 shots on target throughout the whole game. Charleroi actually also managed 2 out of 4, which is in general not a very bad average, but yeah, it wasn't enough in this one. The Kuiper deserves a mention as well for Westerlo. Is really has lit up the league in the past week, I guess, with accumulating 3 assists and a goal in 1 week time. So definitely, another shout for him. Let's see if he can continue on that good form. Yeah, and for the rest, I think you guys said most things already. The first away win for Westerlo, probably psychologically an important one to finally get that over the line, and especially in the way they did. Definitely. And yeah, that's it. That were my 2 cents on this game.
That kind of wraps up the Saturday games nicely. Let's go to the Genk v Ghent game, every Englishman's favourite match. This one was, an interesting one in the fact that when you look at the stats, I think, Ghent had no shots on target, but they had 2 really good chances. But the 2 really good chances they had were basically because of Genk mistakes. First one was Van der Voort trying to just playing it straight to Samwars, who couldn't really control it. And I think was Lukumi? Oh, Cuesta, sorry, not Lukumi. Lukumi's gone. I think it was Cuesta who made the recovering tackle. In the second half, it was then Cuesta who made the mistake. I don't know. He took so long on the ball, and he just needed to play it back to Van der Voort or play it out wide. But then he tried to turn, miscontrolled it, gave it straight to Hugo Kuipers. But unfortunately for Kuipers, Cuesta's a lot quicker than him. Before Kuipers could pull the trigger, Cuesta had already made this kind of saving tackle. So it was kind of Ghent's best chances. Genk had a fair few more chances in this one, Preciado with a header, El Canus in the first half curling, the second half, curling one just wide when he probably could have played in Munoz on the right-hand side instead. But it was the 90th minute before anyone got a goal, and it was Genk, and it was Mike Tressel with a fantastic ball in. Brian Haynen, just no one followed his run. He heads it home. Genk win 1-0, which is, a big win for them when looking at the table, keeps them behind Antwerp in second place. And I guess, for Ghent, it'll be a bit frustrating that they didn't take those 2 chances. But then I guess if Ghent had won, Genk would have been also equally frustrated that they'd given away 2 really sloppy chances in a game that was quite tight.
Yes, especially that. But very sweet one again. Second week in a row to scoring from a Trésor set piece in stoppage time. So definitely, a team that for me can go on all season from now on. But I'm sure many other people will not like that. That also means 3 clean sheets in 4. In general, the defending was well, but indeed, a few chances given away themselves. The Cuesta one, he really given away themselves. In the first 5 minutes, I think it was even 2 times. They also gave away the ball cheaply in defense, but at least there it was because of some Ghent pressure. So that you can give some credits to Ghent there, of course, as well. But the defenders managed to, the defending duo is actually really taking shape and making good, looking more and more composed. And even when they have both of Mackenzie and Cuesta have some moments every game that it's not all that thought through or well, but they seem to be handling that well. And then the whole team is also really still working for each other and picking up pieces that were the others might have left them. And that's good to see. So there was 3 clean sheets in the last 4 games now, so that's definitely a good sign. That the defense is getting in order. Well, that in the beginning of the season was still a bit of an issue. I'm not saying it's completely gone, but this will definitely give some confidence to everyone at the back. On the other hand, offensively it's looking a bit less sparkly, but also the last few weeks there were some really tough and also very defensive in some cases opponents, but defensive in the way of playing out of an organization and having their system in order. So I guess that's a bit it's quite normal. Still, they created a few chances, not really big ones either, but still. And then set pieces are of course such an asset in close games like this. So that's Trésor also on 5 goals and 5 assists now. So getting to double figures combined, which is already not so bad after not even 10 games. Ghent, 0 shots on target, not unpacking the giveaways were indeed things I also had noted for them. What else is there to note? A very funny throw-in that was as well. I think it was Samaze who tried to play a throw-in really quickly. But he threw it from very far, so the ball bounced before it came onto the pitch. So it was it was against the rules. So he had to retake that. It was a funny moment. And that's 14 points out of the possible 27 for Ghent now. So safe to say they are having a wobbly start of the season as well, a bit topsy-turvy.
Yeah, I think it'd be fair to say good old Hein wasn't particularly happy with a number of things, in the outcome of this game. For me, Genk were the winners, actually. I thought they deserved to win this. Mike Trésor, as Joris was saying, absolutely fantastic. I thought he had a great game. He really did. Aanen's goal was absolutely wonderful. I mean, my initial reaction to it was that's really poor defending, but when I saw it again a couple of times from different angles, I think it's purely his run. He gets the run early, which buys him the space, and the header itself is really, really good. It was a lovely goal. Really frustrating for the Ghent bench, actually. You could see Van Heisenbroek, flinging his hands up. up, realising that, there's absolutely nothing they could have really done about that, certainly with the time that was left either. And he had, in true Van Heisenbroek fashion, a good whine about a number of things afterwards to kind of get that out of his system, which is very much the Hein way. But yeah, a good win for Genk and an impressive one. And interestingly, Wouter Franken was saying in his address to the squad just before the game in the dressing room, I saw a little bit of the footage from Genk TV, and he said, if you go out there and you create the opportunities that they've been creating in recent weeks, he says, I've no doubt that they'll win the game. And actually, they were kind of rewarded for that. This game started really well. I thought the first half an hour was pretty good entertainment. A really good tempo was set. Unfortunately, it kind of tailed off, and the game became kind of quite flat, particularly in the second half. Ghent were, sat quite deep for a lot of it and didn't offer a great deal offensively. A lot of that was to do with, Genk, to be fair, actually. But yeah, good and well-worthy win for the Genkies for me.
Yeah, congratulations to them. And yeah, we're all enjoying Mike Tressor's performances this season, and long may they continue. Let's go to Eupen. They hosted Union Saint-Gilloise, who, coming off a nice European result, took the lead pretty early in this one. And what a goal this was from Simon Adingler. Originally given offside and then VAR thankfully overruled it, because it's just like the ball comes over to him, he's running onto it, and you think most of the time if you lift it over the keeper, it's going to kind of go quite high and then bounce and roll in, but he lifts it straight into the top corner. It was a ridiculous finish from him, well worth viewing if you haven't seen it already on the highlights show that the Pro League put out. So that, 1-0 to Union, off to a good start. Eupen did get themselves back into the game from a set piece. It came, I think, just after Steph Peters fired an absolute rocket, which looked like it was just going to nestle in the bottom corner, but Molly stuck out a big hand and tipped it around the post. Fortunately for him, he could do absolutely nothing about Boris Lambert's header from that resulting set piece. Absolutely thundered it into the back of the net. And it stayed 1-1 up until the late 90 minutes. My man, one of my favourite players, Mubarak Wakaso, got himself sent off in the 91st. And in the 92nd minute, Victor Boniface kind of broke Eupen hearts, I guess you could say, making it 2-1. Second winning goal he's got in the space of a week. What a fantastic signing he has been for them so far. Union probably deserved this one. 55% possession in this one, 13 shots, just 3 on target. That would be quite frustrating for them. They could have probably put more past Eupen. Another frustrating result for Eupen. They are just above kind of the bottom 3 at the moment, and that's 3 defeats on the bounce. They are trending downwards, which will be very, very worrying. And you're kind of worried a bit for Bernd Stork at the moment, aren't you guys?
I think Bernd Stork will be absolutely raging after this game, and the way that this game ended kind of sums up the way things are kind of going for them at the moment. I mean, Wakazo's red card is avoidable. It's a bit of frustration, but ultimately it's avoidable. You look like you're going to get a point, and then there's a long ball up into the box straight after that, where Boniface, nicks in to get the winner, which I think was deserved. As Ben was saying, I think Union were definitely the better side over the course of the game, although Eupen did come more into it, particularly in the second half. But yeah, the way that this game ended just typifies the way things are going for them. A little loss of discipline, and then they switch off. With a minute or so to go, a simple long ball just isn't defended at all. It's really pretty basic stuff, and Boniface nips in to kind of nick it, deservedly, as Ben was saying. But yeah, the manner that the way this game ended just kind of sums up all of the problems that Eupen have got at the moment. And it's a shame that Wakazo in particular got the red card, because he's a player who I think has got quite a lot to offer them, and obviously that was only his second game as well.
I disagree a bit on it being deserved, to be fair. A bit like Kyle Gerards himself also said, it was not their best game at all. And I felt from what I've seen that Eupen, really definitely at least deserved a point and maybe even the win. But apart from that, the goals were quality. That Boniface header was Union's third shot on target as well. So to come back to that team, where Eupen had a bit more, but didn't manage to convert. Also, it was not that Eupen was really impressive, but I do feel like they played quite well for playing against Union. Throwing away that, not only maybe deserved, but in my point, but of you, but also needed point. 3 losses in a row, 4 home losses in a row for Eupen as well. So that these stats are not looking likely, and they are having difficulties to score a goal, definitely. And then, of course, there were the other factors in this game that both of you guys already touched on as well. Union, 2 nice goals. Well, 1 nice goal and 1 giveaway goal, indeed. And and very efficient. And sometimes that is enough for them. And they have learned from last week they how to score a winning header in stoppage time. So like both teams from last week did that this time. Although I think actually Heine's header in the end was like just before stoppage time went in, but that's a different topic and not so important at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think it was. That was, I forgot to mention, I just landed from my flight and I thought, the game's on, I'll stick it on. And literally the first thing I saw was Tressel's cross and Hayden's header. So it was literally right at the back end of that game. But yeah, it'd be frustrating for Eupen, like you guys said, but Union, they'll be more than happy with that. Let's go to Liège, shall we? And we had a little bit of Zincker magic in this one with Philip Zinckernagel just absolutely lighting this one up. Club Brugges were really off it. I thought they started reasonably well. Without Zinckernagel, though, they kind of rested a couple of players after their absolute destruction of Porto during the week. But they still had a strong enough squad out. I think it was probably only Zinckernagel who was rested, and obviously no Clinton Matter as well. It was all about Zinckernagel. 30th minute, he gets the ball. I think there's a throw-in on the right-hand side. Ball comes to him. And I don't know, Hans van Acken's just like looking at him. Like he's giving him like a lot of space and he's looking at him. And Zinckernagel like, if you're not going to close me down, I'll just cut inside onto my left foot and whip it into the far corner, which is what he does. Mignolet just stands there. There's absolutely nothing he can do about it. Just pure class, that goal. And he's just got that in his locker. He is a quality player. And I know before I left, I was saying that was what was missing with Standard, was that kind of little bit of quality alongside Lascan and Amala. And in Zinckernagel, they've definitely got it. I don't know what you guys think, but I personally, that goal was great. But his second goal, there was something about just the way, it was a really fantastic kind of way he picked up the ball, drove with it. Silla just getting absolutely bounced. I thought he had a pretty poor game, in all honesty, in this one. I didn't think it was as good as what we've seen from him in previous matches, but he just gets bounced off. Zinckernagel into the box, just absolutely skins Brandon Mekele. Just the way he kind of drops the shoulder. It's just, I don't know, it's just so good. It's just one of those things that you just want to show kids and be like, this is the way to drop the shoulder and leave the opponent flat-footed before them smashing it into the bottom corner. Just fantastic goal from him. I'll leave you guys to this. I would like to hear which one of the goals you guys preferred, because I found it quite hard to decide between the two. Standard then wrapped up this one in the 92nd minute with a nice little tap in for William Balikwisha at the back post. He then got booked for the second time and got sent off, which kind of the cameras all seemed to miss, and suddenly it was like there was a red card, and then Balikwisha was just walking off. So kind of 0-0 for him there, but I'm sure he didn't really mind. Great performance from Standard in this one, guys, wasn't it? And that now gives them, I believe it is, 4 wins in a row? What a job Ronnie Dyler is doing. They're now just outside of playoff 1. And Philip Zinckernagel, what a player.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it, guys? A few days in football is can be such a long time, can't it? No sooner are you coming off the back of a really impressive and unexpected away win in the Champions League to Porto, that you suffer a convincing defeat to one of your domestic rivals, and I think this is probably symptomatic actually of the hard work that Ronny Deila and Fergal Harkin have been doing to really establish a connection between the fans and the players, and the club more widely again. Me and Joris have been speaking about the significance simply of just going 3 games, 3 wins on the bounce being a big thing, but this obviously is a little bit different because it's Club Brugges in town who are coming, and we actually shared some footage from Standard TV yesterday of Ronny Deila's pre-match address to the squad in the dressing room before this game, and it was really interesting just psychologically to see his approach, to see exactly what it was that he was instructing his players to do. Go and have a look at that on our Twitter feed if you haven't seen that yet, because I thought that was fascinating, a great insight. Zinckernagel, just fabulous quality, and just a reminder, not that we needed any, that look what can happen if you just have a little injection of these things, into your squad, which they now have. And I think Zinckernagel actually is somebody they've picked up down to Fergal Harkin and his Olympiacos connections, and the fact that he'd fallen out of favour there as well. And it's one of those pickups where they probably wouldn't have got, perhaps, now there's been a change of coach at Olympiacos as well, which amused me slightly, a really interesting one. Big shout out to the Standard Ultras, by the way. I mean, that Tifo pre-match was, as Tifos go, that was pretty special. There aren't many Ultras who do Tifos quite like the Standard fans do. That stand with the Ultras Inferno are housed at Slesen is the kind of perfect stage for those sorts of big grandstanding Tifos, because of the steeply banked nature of the stands there at Slesen. And those watching will have noticed that they had ultras on abseils at the top of both corners of that stand, orchestrating all of that, and that was pretty special stuff, and great to see. I love a great tifo. Interestingly, Ronny Deila talking about how proud he was of that victory. I think he realises that this particular game could go a long way for them, in just proving to the squad that actually they can compete. They can compete if they do the right things. He was saying pre-match, go out there, be positive, do your job, communicate with each other. He went as far as to say it's a day he'll remember for a long time. He's a passionate guy, Ronnie, and I think that result kind of exemplified all of that. He was saying afterwards as well, he wants them to learn to use the ball better. And he referenced Bruges. He says, look how well they use the ball in a lot of their games. He says, we have to use the ball in the right ways at the right moments, and if we do that, we will get points. So some definite signs, as Joris was agreeing with me last week, of some green shoots for them to build upon.
Yeah, and definitely wanted to touch on that tifo of, how can you not? A really impressive one, definitely. The rest, you guys said it. Choose between two of Zinckernagels goals. It's very tough. I don't think I will make a choice, because in general I would go for the second one, because I find there's more skill in that one than I'm not that much of a fan of long range shots. But yeah, the factor that makes it more impressive is that long range shot was with his weaker foot theoretically. So that evens out that my reasoning a little bit as well. I guess I will pick a side and still say go for the second one, but that's just a general feeling about the beauty of goals and the aesthetics of everything in general, not about these 2 goals. 4 wins in a row indeed for Standard. First time they really were impressive, I found as well. So first time they really convincing. And indeed, climbing the ranking. So the playoff 1 is close now, really close. But yeah, we'll have to see if this is indeed the start of something, or if they will fall back. We've also not that long ago called them we were a bit worried about relegation, and now we're talking about playoff one. So I guess the truth probably lies a bit in the middle where they belong. So if so, then also that would even itself out. But only one way to find out, of course. The signs are good. There's also before a few signings like Zinckernagel were made as well. On Club Brugge, then, really poor. I guess indeed the start of the game was not too bad, but after that, after the first goal, it really went south. Only one shot on target. Still also stay with that team. Very unlike them, and that's also for a bit of nuancing for both sides, I guess. This also means no wins in Sclessin since January 2017 for Club Brugge. So it's not that they have gotten points before, that other managers also didn't get points against Club Brugge. In this particular fixture, Standard has always been good in the past few years. It's also, I believe, it is the longest run of all teams as well that are unbeaten at home against Club Brugge at the moment. So but definitely a bogey fixture for Club Brugge, and that has shown even more so than in other times, I guess. And Balikwisha getting that yellow card, well, that's just stupid. That can't really say it differently. That as a player that you don't do that, especially if you already have a yellow card. I know you get carried away in emotion, but yeah, I'm sure Dyla also was not completely happy with that, although it's not the worst offense. And I'm not a big fan of that rule, to be honest, but okay, it's a very clear one. So that's just the way it is. Sad that he will miss a game because of that, though.
Yeah, I think that's the more frustrating thing, is he's been such a good player for them as well. He's going to miss a game for... Well, I mean, he scored the goal. It was the last goal of the game as well, and they'd already won 3-0. It's not like it was the winning goal either. So, but I mean, it was just kind of, there was a lot of emotion and passion from the Standard players and fans in that game. So you think you just got caught up in it all. Yeah, kind of on what you said, Scott, about Fergal Harkin and kind of that link to Olympiacos and Zinckernagel. I'm sure if he went to Dyla and said, I want to bring in Zinckernagel, Dyla would have remembered him from his time in Norway and be like, absolutely, like, give me him any day of the week, any of those like kind of like for the Buddha Glimt players. But like probably Patrick Berg as well. He was probably like, yeah, just give me any of them. I could definitely use them. And looking forward to seeing him kind of play out the whole season with Standard, and kind of, if he can, grab more goals like that, because there's a quality player, and then we definitely saw it this weekend. Let's move to Anderlecht. And yeah, you said that was a bit of stupidity, Joris. There was one of the funniest stupid goals in this game that I've probably seen for a long time. However, it wasn't for a while, so we'll kind of go through the first ones to begin with. Jan Vertonghen almost scored a volley. I guess that's worth highlighting. But he did score later on. But the first goal went to Jari Verschalen. Nice finish from him inside the box to make it 1-0. And that's how it stayed up until half time. So Kortrijk, to be fair to them, was still in the game at that point. However, the second half, Anderlecht kind of tried to put them away. Majid Ashimeru with the second goal in the 59th minute. Nice to see him back on the score sheet and back fit and playing again. Then came the ridiculous goal. I don't know what Anderlecht were doing defensively to try and clear this corner, but just kind of kicking it against each other before eventually someone decided to just kick it against Faiz Selemani, and it went in. Weirdest goal he'll probably ever score. One of those ones, it's like, can you really claim it? But I guess I'd claim it. And he definitely claimed it. And at that point, hang on, okay. It's only 2-1. Maybe Kortrijk can come back into it. But they decided to ship some more goals like they have been in recent weeks. Jan Vertonghen then finally got his goal in the 64th minute. And I was thinking, guys, you got Vertonghen scoring, you've got Alderweireld scoring. I didn't look it up, but has Vermaelen scored somewhere? It's kind of like the week for kind of the old school Belgian centre-backs for scoring goals. Boyata obviously didn't come on the score for Club Brugge, so he'll be a bit disappointed, but maybe somewhere Vermaelen scored.
Well, probably on the Red Devils training.
Yeah. Closest he's getting, isn't he, at the moment, I guess, for him, bless him. And then the weirdest decision, I don't know how, like, counter-attack from Anderlecht. Rafaev gets it, and I felt bad for him because poor old Tanaka works so hard to get back into position, and then he just brings down Leo 5 in the box. He knows it. His head just completely sinks. The referee then books Rafire for diving, and it's like, even if you thought that, just look at Tanaka's face. Like, he's not protesting. He knows that he's done something and he's committed the foul there. Rafire almost pushes the referee in absolute like confusion as to how on earth he's not seen the touch that was so obvious. Obviously, VAR intervenes. Rafire then steps up and puts the penalty away. Kortrijk lose 4-1 once again. It's getting pretty poor for them, but Anderlecht, I guess, will be pretty happy with the second half that they actually then managed to put some goals past them.
I think Anderlecht needed that result for a lot of reasons, to get a lot of things out of their system. I mean, because of the way other results had worked out, they'd fallen, quite a bit further down the table than I think even they thought they might, the way that results were going. Convincing win, up to 8th now on 13 points, which looks worse than it is, the 4 points outside playoff one. But I think that's just one of those results that, because of everything that's been going on there recently and the light that's been shone on that, me and Joris were talking about this a lot last week, is it takes the pressure off a little bit, just a little bit, because, kind of things clicked. Few injury worries coming out of that game for them, actually, so we don't know how serious they are yet, but or how big that's going to impact them in the next few weeks. So we'll need to keep an eye on that, because that's been kept very much under wraps. Don't know if that tells us anything or not yet, but yeah, I think that's something they needed to get out of their system, and I sense just a general air of relief, I suppose is probably the right word, around Anderlecht fans after that result.
A very how to say that, welcome fixture for them. I think it was quite impossible to lose against this current Kortrijk side for them. I think that goal was indeed quite comical, though, that they gave away, and it still was not too convincing. It's good for them that Verscharen finally got his first goal contribution of the season, and they got 3 goals on set pieces, which also again shows again that they are not creating enough from open play, though. On the other hand, for the moment, I'm sure they will take that. They also only had 5 shots on targets to state that even further, to make that statement even harder. But good win in honor for Michel Verschuren. They really did need that. There was a sense of relief for sure, and but I'm not sure if we can say much about the consequences for the rest. But it's going to be good for their confidence, at least, and give them a little boost, a well-needed boost. For Kortrijk, on the other hand, I am, indeed very, very worried. They definitely are in the struggle. They look so poor, give away goals for fun, and also not creating. That, for me, that's not even the biggest issue for that they have. That lies more in attack, where they still are also not scoring enough, struggling to score goals, and we'll have to see. We'll have to see how both teams react on those games. But I'm not very convinced with Kortrijk at the moment, and do see them as a big potential. Well, it's not a big hot take, not a real hot take, I think, to say so. But they are definitely a big relegation candidate at the moment if they don't improve. Very, very much significantly.
No, they've got a lot of work to do in the winter break, has Kustovic, because they won that first game he was in charge against Eupen, and it's 2 back-to-back 4-1 smashings. They then have Antwerp, Genk to come in the next 2 before they then have they have a game against Rotterdam on the 15th of October, which is shaping up to be quite a big one. Both sides will be looking at that one and thinking that's one we really, really need to win. Before we look at 1B, let's just quickly go back over the kind of European results. We mentioned a little bit, but what a win for Club Brugges against Porto. 4-0 away from home. Fer Nutkler getting the first goal from the spot. Camelso with a really, really nice finish to make it 2-0. Skov Olsen and Noosa then rounding it off. I don't know, guys, when the draw was made, if you'd said that they were going to beat Porto 4-0 away from home, and I've been that there's absolutely no chance that's going to happen. But what a great start to the group. And I mean, at this time, it's kind of like they should get through, shouldn't they? Like, you start this well, the kind of pressures ramps up a little bit. You go from kind of like, oh, it's the best group we could have got, but it's still difficult, to actually no, we've put two big results together, especially winning away from home, and now there's a little bit more expectation that they can qualify from Group B.
Well, for that to happen, the result in the other game, yeah, is maybe the least desirable result. Leverkusen winning, and despite also that meaning that Club Brugge are actually the leading the group, but yeah, this opens up the group in general. In otherwise, two teams would have 6 points, but would be 6 points ahead of two other teams. That would be clear. Also, an additional factor that is not working in their favor is that they have to play Atletico twice now in the round 3 and 4. So they definitely need to play for something, especially since they now lost that previous game. We'll definitely they should definitely go through in one way or another. Just that 0-4 also means they are so most likely going to be having a better result if Porto and Club would have equal points at the end of the group stage. So the third spot should really, well, I think that is basically already done and dusted. Despite the opening of the group, I don't see Porto getting above Club Brugge at the moment. But it does really give perspective, and it would really not be a surprise, and you should really now they really should believe in it as well. I mean, getting through the group stage, and I believe they will manage even. That might be it's still not already also not really a hot take. It would have been if I would have said it 2 weeks ago, but now I do believe in it.
Yeah, fantastic and kind of unexpected start on the whole. And actually, they've given themselves a great platform to even go and win the group now. Obviously, what's key is the back-to-back games against Atletico coming up. Tough games, really tough games. I think that'll determine ultimately probably the outcome of the group now. But I think if they can do all right out of those two ties, there's no reason why they can't go and win the group. And actually, if I was Karl Ofkins, I'd be saying, look, that's our target now. Whether that's, whether they do that or whether they qualify through finishing second, obviously they'll take that, but they've given themselves a fantastic platform to even exceed their targets going into this. And actually, at large parts of that game against Porto, and I don't say this very often about sides in any league in football anymore, but they've really played them off the park at times. They were fantastic, and I thought the fourth goal in particular was really, really good. The timing of the ball for the run, was just wonderful. Really, really beautiful clinical football, and I'd like to see a little bit more of that. And I'm just enjoying the kind of coefficient points racking up at the moment, because we've been talking for ages about our worries around that. And I said to Joris recently, which amused me greatly, I would take the same again, another 3 wins and a draw on match day 2, and that's exactly what we got. So I'm looking for the hat trick. I'm looking for another 3 wins and a draw on match day 3. Let's see if we get that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like this is the best kind of, especially since we started the podcast, this is definitely the best kind of start to a European campaign we've had across all the teams involved. Actually feels like a bit of positivity, which is nice. You mentioned that we got 3 wins. Let's go to the Europa League then, where Union beat Malmo at home. Didn't start so well in this one. Joseph Cisse giving the Swedish side the lead in the 6th minute. However, big Christian Burgess answered when the call came, and he got Union back into the game on the 17th. But then former Anderlecht striker Isaac Kiese-Tellen gave Malmo the lead again on the 57th. So kind of frustration for Union, because they had a lot of the ball. Malmo only had 2 shots on target, both of which went in, but Union 7 shots on target, 11 shots overall, 66% of the possession, really did dominate this game. Teddy Tuma, captain, fantastic on the 69th minute, brought them back, and then literally 2 minutes later, Victor Boniface gave them the lead, and they held out to win this one 3-2. And Joris, you kind of mentioned with the Club Brugges group, it's kind of nice when you do have that separation where two teams have won and two teams have lost, so there's like even bigger buffer. That's what we now have in Group D. Braga winning once again. They beat Union Berlin, pardon me. So that means Braga are top of the table at the moment on goal difference, having not conceded at all. Union in second place with 6 points. Obviously, with Braga to come, I think when we looked at it and when we looked at kind of how leagues were shaking up, Braga were always going to be the team that seemed to be the most difficult. Obviously, Union Berlin are doing fantastically in Germany as well, but again, great start for Union, and again they'll be looking at this thinking we've got a 6 point buffer on those two other teams. We should be able to qualify from the group.
Similar story, yes, indeed. Definitely, they will. They should proceed in Europe. Same story as for Club Brugge. Even worst case, I think, is still that they would fall in third, but then they still have the Conference League. But I personally do also feel confident for Union. They made it too difficult for themselves in this game, though. They should have won this one with a bigger margin. But the most important thing is, of course, that they pulled it over the line.
Yeah, I think it's really encouraging to see Union respond so positively to playing in Europe, and they seem to really be enjoying themselves and raising to that challenge. Because the thing with playing in European football in any league is it is a step up. Even if, you're a team from a top 5 league, then there's just something about, European football nights, regardless of your club and the level where, it means a step up in standard, and they really are responding to that. And also, I think another added positive is that they're not suffering domestically at the moment, as some sides do sometimes coming off the back of European games. Ironically, if you're Club Brugges, then, it's worked out the opposite way for you this week, but Union are handling that very, very well at the moment and enjoying themselves as they should, having not played European football for the best part of just over 60 years. So it's wonderful to see them doing so well in a group that we felt that they could do well in and are, and yeah, definitely expect them to get out of that group now because of the way that they've started.
Yeah. More good news. Let's quickly go to the Conference League before we go to 1B. Ghent with a comfortable win over Shamrock Rovers in the end. Hugo Kuipers in the 9th. Vladis or Gigi Ofoy getting 2. One of them was one of those really fun, like, scissor kick volley things that just seem... They're so unnecessary, but they look great when they go in, and this one did go in. Shamrock did have their chances, got 4 shots on target, but more possession for Ghent and a nice win there. Over in Bucharest in Romania, Anderlecht drew 0-0. 16 shots for Bucharest, but only 4 on target. 60% possession for Anderlecht. So they had enough of the ball, couldn't quite find the winning goal in this one. Both of those sides are still in the qualification kind of zone. Ghent top of their Group F with 4 points, level on points with Djurgården of Stockholm. Anderlecht are also on 4 points, whether they are just 2 points behind West Ham, who are top of that table, having won both of their opening games, which means I believe Anderlecht now have to have West Ham at home before travelling to West Ham for that leg. So those are that's going to be the toughest kind of games in this group. We know that for sure. Ghent, on the other hand, they're facing Djurgården at home and then away as well. I guess kind of for both of those sides, guys, it's what they do in these next 2 games. If they go unbeaten in the next 2, they're well on course for qualification. But should they lose these next 2 games, that could allow teams below them back into it. So kind of everything for these sides in the Conference League is riding on these next 2 matches.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very good point, and we'll have to see how everything pans out. For Anderlecht, it's a bit unlucky. I guess West Ham are clear favorites in this one. But okay, on the other hand, it also means they will anyways, with what they already have, they will still have everything in their own hands in the last 2 games to give it a positive spin. But of course, they probably will need to try to get West Ham not qualified yet, so that they will still have to fight really hard at their best and in the last two games against the other teams. They will need to try to get some to get some results out of at least one result out of the next two games, which won't be easy. There's a lot of things waiting. The good positive thing is both of them are also have only gotten clean sheets in Europe. Actually, Union is the only side that has conceded in the group stages. I mean, at least from Belgium. So that's well, if they can keep, if all the other teams and everyone actually can keep that rhythm up, we will be fine. Let's hope they can.
Yeah, very much all to play for. It's kind of all up in the air there. I thought Anderlecht did quite well, actually get a point. I thought Steaua Bucharest probably should have got all three in the balance of what I saw of that game. I didn't think Steaua Bucharest were too bad at all. So to come away with a point actually for me was a bit of a positive. But yeah, I mean, no reason why both Anderlecht and Ghent can't get out of these groups at all yet, I don't think. Funny thing this week as well, Hein van Heisenbroek getting picked up referring to Shamrock Rovers as Shamrock on a number of occasions, which caused some consternation both amongst Shamrock Rovers fans and Irish media, who said Rovers is fine, it's never just Shamrock. And I think he corrected himself later. Somebody had obviously had a word in his ear, but that amused me a little bit this week.
Not that Hein to get himself in trouble. Great. Thanks, guys. Scott, before we go, what's been happening in 1B?
Well, as ever, I'll do a wee score round-up just in case you haven't been keeping on top of that, and if you haven't, why not? Lierse lost 3-2 at home against Anderlecht. A couple of fantastic goals in that game, by the way. Anderlecht goals, really good. Denver lost 2-0 at home to Dender. Dender picking up their first points. Club Next drawing 2 each with Beveren. Molenbeek drawing 1 each with Young Genk. Beerschot beating Virton 2-1, and Standard Liège 16 going to Lommel and winning 1-0. So in terms of the bigger picture on the table, Lierse remain top. Another goal this weekend from Leonardo Rocca. He's top scorer now still. I think he's on 8. And we're keeping an eye on Denza, who interestingly are plummeting rather fast at the moment, as lots of people have been noticing, and some have even been commenting on this week.
Yes, Joris shared with us an article about Denza, which my translation said they're going from evil to worse. Not sure what that kind of says about them, but yeah, it's not going well there at the moment. Yeah, you mentioned that Anderlecht game. Shout out to Lucas Stassen getting a hat-trick in that one. I was just having a quick look at the table as well, and Lierse at the top have scored the most goals, 16, but they've also conceded the most goals with 13. So if you're planning to go watch a 1B game, definitely go and watch Lierse, because you're guaranteed goals. They're averaging 2 goals a game scored and at least 2 goals a game conceded as well. I think nearly every team's averaging at least a goal a game as well. So you're guaranteed goals in this one, in this league. That's for sure. Obviously, we've now got the international break ahead of us. This seems to happen far too often and far too quickly, I guess. But after that, we are back into kind of the swing of things before the World Cup. So looking ahead when we are back, which is next week. So week Friday, we have Liège derby, Standard against Selang on the Friday night. Leuven against Union, which is a nice little kind of playoff battle going on there. Westerlo host Zulte Waregem. Oostende hosting Genk. And then Club Brugges are hosting Mechelen in the evening on Saturday. Sunday, mid-afternoon, or early afternoon, sorry, Anderlecht hosting Charleroi. Ghent will play newly managed Cercle Brugges. Kortrijk host Antwerp. That could be another 4-1, who knows, but maybe Kortrijk will sort themselves out by then. And then Sint Truiden host Eupen on the Sunday evening. Guys, as always, it's been a pleasure, and thank you very much for holding the fort while I've been away and doing an amazing job. It's been great to listen without having to be in them sometimes. It's always quite nice just to sit back on the beach and listen to the podcast, but it's good to be back. Hope you both enjoy the international break and are looking ahead to the Pro League returning sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's been great to have the triumph together, if I can put it like that, and we'll see you soon, everybody, after the international break.
Yes, definitely can't wait to get this started again. After a 1 week little break that we will be having.
Absolutely, guys. And as per usual, if you like what we do, please do leave us a review on your podcast app of choice. In the meantime, during the international break, if you do have any questions, please you just get in touch with us. We can definitely answer them on the next episode, that's for sure. We haven't done questions and answers for a while. You can reach us on Twitter. That's probably the best place, is just search Belgian Football Podcast and you'll find us there. Or you can also reach out to us individually there as well. Once again, thank you very much for listening, and we'll speak to you very soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.